I would definitely have people like, I know a guy,
Yeah.
right? I'm like, oh,
Welcome to the Carla Rand Show, a weekly podcast designed to dig into the lives of everyday people. People who are making a positive impact, people who have risen above and overcome obstacles. Insights and stories from ordinary individuals who inspire us all towards the truly extraordinary. Here's your host.
Hey, it's Carla, and today I'm talking to Candace Kerr. Candace is the founder of Fire White Music. She teaches piano lessons, she does some recordings, and she also helps out in her church. She shares with us the struggles that she's had with mental health and gives us some insights on how we can relate to others that struggle. And she also talks about the single life, what that's been like for her, and I'm just really happy to have her on. So let's get on to it. Let's listen to what she has to say. So Candace Kerr, thank you so much for joining me. It's a pleasure to have you here, and thank you for being willing to be on here and just talk about your life and your story and some of your struggles and all of that stuff. So yeah, welcome, Candace.
thank you. Super excited. I'm looking forward to it.
Good. So let's start with your life, Candace. What was it like? Where where were you living, and what was it like when you were, let's say, like 7 or 10 or somewhere in that age range? Little Candace, what were you like?
Little Candace, I would say I was pretty energetic, love people, friends, and I grew up on a 3-family farm.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of had a bit of a unique upbringing. I had kind of, in a sense, 3 sets of parents or 3 sets of couples watching out for me and sort of raising me. And there was a lot of team environment in terms of often things we did together, like, the farming side of things, getting to learn how to milk cows and put your chickens together and do all that kind of stuff. So
Nice.
we definitely did all kinds of things. And all of our gatherings when I was little, we pretty much did almost every holiday where we'd, pick one of the homes and we'd all go over. So it was very much this large extended family all the time. So very, very blessed. I feel like my family is incredibly close because of that. And so, but it was just like farm life, running around, quadding, trampolines, and good friends. And
Nice.
it was a wonderful way to grow up.
Yeah, and you were homeschooled, right?
Part of it, not all of it, but portions. Yeah.
Portions
So
of
it was
it.
kind of here and there.
Yeah.
Homeschooling was a part of the story for sure.
Okay. And so then when you were in your teen years, what was it like to be, like, when did you finish your school? What did you do after school? Tell me about that.
So teens were great. I did homeschool a little bit more in my high school just because the busing was kind of odd, where I had to be on the bus for a really, really long time to get to school and back. So through that season, we decided to try out the homeschooling. So I pretty much homeschooled 10, 11, 12. Great youth group. I loved my crew there. So my teen years were really positive. Again, really strong friendships and people I'm still very close with through the years. Most of us have stayed pretty connected.
Yeah, it is funny because we grew up, you and I didn't grow up together, but we grew up in the same kind of area. So once in a while we'd have youth group events and I would see you there and your cousins. And there was a few times where we would get together, but mostly we didn't really see each other. But I kind of knew that the Kerr family was out there somewhere, doing their thing.
Totally same. I knew that, your maiden name McPhee, the McPhee family existed. But I'm actually amazed for relative proximity, how little our paths crossed.
Yeah.
So, but I guess just being 45 minutes away from Edson and my mom working in the Whitecourt area, I tended to go in, if I was going to town, I tended to go to Whitecourt. So I kind of missed a lot of that Edson group because of that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, let's get right into it. So I want to talk to you. Okay, so when you finished school, you went to college, university. What did you do after school? Because I know, you've always been into music, right? I remember hearing you play the piano and you would sing. Do you play guitar too? What all do you do for music?
So music-wise, I grew up learning piano as a kid. My mom actually plays entirely by ear. And so as a kid, my dad sat me, or youth, I guess, my dad sat me at the piano and said, if your mom can play by ear, so can you. So he made me sit there, and he says, "You're not allowed to leave the piano until you play as the deer pants for the water." And actually, I would have to credit a lot of my musical adventures really pin on that actual moment, because I was just sight reading music at the time, and my dad making me sit down, he made me realize I had an ear. I think he knew I had it. I just didn't know it myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so him forcing me to do that, all of a sudden I was like, oh my goodness. Like, so then I decided to learn. But what I would do is I would sing, and I'd always be like, Mom, I want to sing this song. So you've got to learn this song to be on the piano, and then I can sing this song. So that was kind of like how we did it. Or our whole family would maybe sing together.
Mm-hmm.
And so then all of a sudden I was like, oh my goodness, like I got to try a harder song. So then I learned the first song on my own. And then beyond from that, I realized, and I started creating and making music kind of in that phase of my life. So it was really his digging at me a little bit, because I was like, I can't do it. It's too hard. And,
How old were you?
And my mom was, I would have been probably 15, I think.
And he said, sit down and play this song and don't get up until you figure it out.
Yeah.
Wow. Cool. And it worked, apparently.
It totally worked.
I got to try that. Gee, I'm trying to teach my kids how to play the piano. Good. Well, that's cool. That's interesting. So you figured it out, and you learned that you actually enjoyed it too.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I always loved music. I always loved that side of it, but it really brought a new avenue that was very personal, and it gave me a tool I think maybe I didn't know I was going to need yet, in terms of being able to write through difficulty. It gave me an opportunity to express things in painful times.
Nice. Good. So it's like a creative way for you to express yourself, and to maybe, does it help ease struggles and pain in your life then? Is that what you kind of use music for?
Big time. Actually, I'm trying to learn to write from a happier place.
Okay.
because it really was that for me. It really became that in terms of just an avenue, almost to help me process. It gave me an outlet to be able to somehow express how I was feeling, and even just in the movement of the music and the melodies, and how that can express sort of the depths of how you feel, just as much as you hear like a sad song, you're like, oh, I feel that, right? And you could just, when I was writing, I was able to do that for myself, and just create create the song I needed for myself.
Yeah, and then you branched out and you started teaching music. And so now you're teaching voice and piano, is that right?
Yeah, and basic guitar. But honestly, guitar, I dabble in guitar.
You dabble in guitar?
I'm not like an expert by any stretch of the imagination.
Okay.
But
cool.
I can at least get people going.
Good. No, that's awesome. And I mean, it depends where people are at, because all you really have to be in order to teach is just one step or maybe two steps ahead of somebody else, right? Like, really.
Yeah.
So awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. So let's get into the struggles then, because you're saying that like music is helping you deal with the struggles. What are some of those struggles in your life that have been, just a part of who you are, Candace, made you who you are? One thing I appreciate about you is you're very friendly. You've always been very friendly. I would assume that you're an extrovert, but I could be wrong. You could be one of these introverts that just knows how to extrovert very well. Would you describe yourself as an extrovert or an introvert?
I definitely, especially younger, I feel I'm an extrovert for sure.
Okay.
But I've now needed, as I'm a little bit older, I'm finding I need to have more alone time than I've ever needed. But definitely extrovert.
Okay, because you always were just like this bouncing, smiling, like always this Candace. Whenever I saw you, you were like always smiling and like always talking to people. So I was like, she's got to be an extrovert. So that's cool. So now we're both talking. We're both extroverts. I was less extrovert when I was young. I probably seemed like an introvert. I was very shy and quiet. And then that kind of switched around, and I realized that it's more fun to be an extrovert, I think, or something. I wanted to have more fun. So anyways, yeah, so you're doing a lot of cool things, and you've been, you've had an interesting life just growing up, like on this farm, and then music, and just kind of the way that you've used music to deal with your struggles. So let's get into those struggles. Why don't I'll just let you kind of lead the way with the struggles.
Sure.
What would you like to share first?
Well, for me, kind of like all my growing up and everything that we went over was really, really awesome. And I felt really confident about who I was and comfortable with myself, and went away to school, my first trip to college. And that is when my world turned wildly upside down for me. I went away to school, and within a little while of being there, they ended up taking me to the hospital, and I was admitted into a psychiatric ward and was told that I'd had a brief reactive psychosis. And pretty much for whatever reason, my brain malfunctioned and lost sense of reality.
So what was that like to go through?
It was really, honestly, like very, very scary. And I was very confused, and there was things that came into play that caused my actual confusion to be like a lot worse. But that's kind of too big of a story to get into. But my dad and my mom, like they actually weren't, the college couldn't reach my parents. They didn't know what to do. So they opted to take me to the hospital, and that's kind of, they ended up getting me into the Red Deer Hospital, and my parents came down, and my dad, just in talking with me, sort of helped me clear up my confusions. And, you know, obviously they were doing medication, but my experience, to be honest, in my first trip to the hospital was quite negative. I was very, very heavily medicated, right? And like even he wouldn't really listen to my parents in terms of them talking to him. And so it was,
the doctor wouldn't listen to your parents?
Yeah, he didn't really take into account things that they were communicating. And so it was just not a positive experience. And I wish I could say that it was, but I mean, it wasn't. And so the trust level wasn't there for me, or even my family, with kind of how everything went. And so I just kind of carried on and was like, you know, trying my best to understand. But I was kind of like, well, you know, God's good enough. Like, this doesn't really ever have to happen again. And I did grow up in a Christian home. So, you know, I was very grateful, you know, for my family and faith and stuff like that. But it was hard. I was kind of like, you know, God, like, why did this happen to me, kind of a thing. But actually, to be honest, that more hit me because I ended up at 20 going back into the hospital again.
So why did you go to the hospital the first time? Sorry, can I just back up a little bit? So the first time you went to the hospital, you said that you were kind of, you know, I don't know, not losing your mind, but, you know, like your reality or whatever was messed up. So what did that look like? Like when people are looking at you and saying, okay, something's wrong with Candace, how did they know that something was wrong with you? Like, was it because you weren't making sense? Were you like, what were you doing?
Yeah, I wasn't in that circumstance. I mean, this is a long time ago. So
trying to remember.
And
right?
I usually actually measure slightly different. Like I wasn't sleeping well. I know these are the things I've kind of learned, I guess, that can kind of help.
Okay.
One of the major things for me is sleep. So if I am not sleeping well, and for a long period of time, then I'm going to start having trouble. Things will be difficult for me. So sleep is like my first priority, like trying to have quality sleep and like consistent sleep. And if I have, you know, multiple days of where I'm not sleeping very good, you know, I have medication to help me make sure I have a solid sleep. Because for whatever reason, sleep has always fallen into the story. Also, I would say, yeah, if you were communicating with me, I might not make 100% sense to you.
So was this,
for sure.
Was this always happening in your life, or did it just like you were totally fine, your mental health was totally fine, and then boom, it just hit in college? Is that the way it was, or was this something ongoing?
No, it was not ongoing. Okay. That was like completely, honestly, I explained that time in my life like being blindsided by a train.
Okay. Wow.
It was very, like nothing like that ever in my life before. And totally, like I could, and even now, like I cannot 100% make it make sense even for me.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Like I have truly, like when I was 20 and was hospitalized again, I was officially given a diagnosis as bipolar.
Okay. And
though I'm slightly unique because all of my episodes have been considered on the manic side. So, which would be the high side, not the depressive. So I can't really speak a lot on the depression side of things, but I can towards like the mania or what that looked like for me.
Mm-hmm.
So, when I was 20, honestly, because I didn't think I was going to get sick again. So I was kind of like back to life and like just carrying on. But when I was sick for the second time, that was when life got like crazy hard for me. Cause it all of a sudden became like, God, why didn't you keep me safe? Like, how come I felt that way? Like, God, why didn't you keep me safe? God, if I was your kid, like, why didn't you protect me? How did you make me in such a way that I could break, or that my mind could break? And I really lost at that time, my sense of value. 18, I didn't so much, but 20, I did. 20 was one of the hardest things ever to walk through. And that's when I really started to rip myself apart. And I just was trying to find, like, did I do something wrong? I must have done something horrible to deserve this, going through those things, like trying to find something to fix, or make right.
So I'm just trying to figure out exactly what it's like for you then. So when you have this episode, when you're, what was it, like 18 or whatever, and then you had it again when you were 20. So when it happened at 18, like, I'm just curious, like, what does it look like? Is it the way that you're seeing it, or is it the way people are seeing you? Like, I'm just trying to figure out what that looks like. Like, how do you know?
It's a little bit of both.
Okay.
It's a little bit of both. Like I said, the sleep is big. That's kind of my big cue. Like, just try to get sure I'm on sleep.
But how does it act out? Like, how do people know, or how do you know that, oh my goodness, I'm having one of these episodes again?
It would be more, like your thoughts are really, really rapid.
Okay.
Like I would be jumping from, like I would just go from thought to thought to thought very, very quickly. And my speech would then become like in my brain, I've thought all the things I'm saying to you, but I'm only giving you snippets.
Okay.
Because my brain is just going, it's almost like you're on speed. I've never been on speed.
Okay.
But like,
yeah,
I would be like, if I were to equate it, maybe it's just like you're at the speed of light. So if it was starting to get bad, obviously, like, and everyone, like, to be clear, everybody has the high and low. Everybody does this. Like, this is not, it is just that it goes more extreme than the average. Okay. So also just to keep in mind, like, everybody does this.
Right. When you're tired or when you're, stressed.
This is normal, right?
Okay.
But it's like an extreme and an extreme, right? Or that's kind of, like I said, that's why I'm a little bit unique, is because I tend to just kind of go. But they kind of joke that, like, I probably run a little bit higher. Like you said, I'm always usually smiling, blah, blah. So I probably run a little bit higher. So therefore, when I go on that high or would have, so that would be part of it, the speech. And then if it was really bad, like literally reality's lost, like the information or the things that I'm seeing, I misinterpret them. I don't interpret them properly anymore. So then it shows up in my actions and something I would do it. So then people be like, oh, she just doesn't seem quite on. Right.
And would you notice it too, or just other people would notice it?
I have come to the place that I can.
Okay.
But initially, no.
Okay. So everyone's like, Candace, what's going on? And you're like, I'm fine. What's wrong with you? Is that how it felt or no?
At times, yes. It wasn't always easy. It was hard for my family and me, at different points in the journey. And especially because I have PTSD from it.
Okay.
Like from being hospitalized, because I know what it takes to overcome that. I know what it takes to, if someone wanted to admit me into the hospital, like there's a lot of like trauma involved.
Yeah, I don't want to ask stupid questions, but I just really don't know. Like, I'm just really like, okay, what does it look like? And what does it, what does it sound like? What does it smell like? Whatever, right? Like when you get like that. Okay, so now you've had 2 episodes, and when you were 20, it was really bad. and it totally changed your life. In what way? Basically just because you were questioning God. God, why is this happening to me? Why am I why have you made my brain broken in that way? Why can't I just be the way I was? Like, what do I have to change? How can I make this better?
Yeah.
Then what did you do with all of that? I mean, that would have been so overwhelming to feel all that. Like, how did you, I mean, look at you now, right? You're not down in the dumps. You seem to be so well adjusted. Like, obviously you've gone through this journey and you've come out, seems like on the other side, pretty well. What did it take to get you through that?
Well, and I will include a couple of things in terms of like what I had to overcome, just adding a little bit.
Sure.
Like in the sense of losing my value, I didn't think anyone could love me with this diagnosis. So I sort of was like, nobody could ever love that. And seeing how hard it was on my family to like walk with me through it, it was really hard on everyone, including myself, but everybody else, it was really painful. And just, it's hard to see someone you love struggling and hurting, right? And so in that sense, they were suffering. Sorry if I get choked up. But so for me, it was so hard to see my family hurt because of me. And I was like, how can I invite someone in my life knowing I could possibly cause them pain? And I obviously am not a person who wishes pain on people, and I don't like hurting people. So I, in a sense, had done the thing that I had never wanted to do. And even as a teen, I had seen people, kind of be really, do things in life that really affected their family. And I was kind of this girl who was like, I'm never going to do that to my family. I want to live a good life. I want to be a quality daughter. And so that sort of broke that for me. I was like, all of a sudden I'd become, without wanting to and meaning to, I'd become, this painful piece of my family. And so for me, the overcoming really, it was a journey. It took me 8 years, and obviously I'm even crying now, but I couldn't talk about it for 8 years. Like I remember the first time I actually talked to someone about it and I didn't cry. It took me 8 years. So I would say it was a real journey.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing was like recognizing like, no, like, and I honestly, one of the things that helped was like, when God looks at me, if God made me and God looks at me, he doesn't look at me and say, that's my bipolar Candace. And I really chose not to live within the box of bipolar. I don't spend my life thinking about all those parameters. And I think that might make it, but why it's so hard for me to explain them to you is because I actually don't live there. I don't make my life decisions. I mean, I do in the sense of like, I try to get rest. I try to eat healthy. I, exercise. I try to take care of myself. But I really was like, I'm not going to buy into this box for myself and take on more than I should. So if God's looking at me, I see God look at me and say, that's my Candace. That's my girl. That's the girl I love. And so I really made sure I shifted my perspective to be like, no, if God, because I was thinking about that. If I had a girlfriend and she's sitting me there and looking at me and saying, God doesn't care about me, and God, all this, a negative perspective, I'd be like, there is no way that's true. Like there just isn't. So I realized if I would say that to a friend, I'd better say that to myself.
That's tough, isn't it? That's tough, man.
Yeah.
I can see why that would be so hard for you. Yeah. Man, is that why, Candace, is that part of why you've been single all this time? Does that have anything to do with it?
I know definitely for a season, a long stretch, that even because there have been interested parties, people I've been interested, like definitely, but it was very hard to truly believe, especially if they hadn't seen it happen. Like for me, it was like, it's very easy to say, oh yes, like it doesn't matter. But I'm like, you never saw it. You haven't walked the hard road. And so it was very hard for me to trust that, when if the going got tough, would you really stay.
Mm-hmm.
And so that definitely played a role, but I also am a real romantic. So I'm kind of like, if it was supposed to have worked out, I really believe it would have, gotten there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I've always thought of you as, this beautiful, radiant woman, inside and out. And I've just always thought of you that way, right? And I think sometimes when it's like people's perspective is like, oh, well, if somebody's single, there must be something wrong. Like maybe they're not pretty enough, or maybe they're not whatever enough, right? And so I feel like for you being single, so was it that you didn't want to let people in, or is it just honestly it just hasn't really worked out? Because I mean, you've had a lot of people interested in you. I know that for a fact. A lot of guys that wanted to date you. A lot of people that were interested in you. So did you push them away? Was it just you weren't ready, or was it you were worried about, like you did mention about your mental health, right? You're worried, okay, they don't know what it's like to walk with bipolar, so you're partly protecting them by not letting them in, or what's your sort of thought process around that? What's been your experience?
I do think I have this sense of like, in my gut, does it make sense? And if I just felt like it didn't quite make sense somehow, like in getting to know them, I was like, I'm not going to lead you on or kind of pretend that, hopefully this is going to start making sense. So usually there was a gut for me that I just couldn't get there myself. And I mean, I have had guys, believe me, that I have been interested in, and they don't get there with me. Do you know what I mean? They're just not on that page. Like, right. So there's been the mutual.
Yeah.
I've been interested in people who just like, I just know and can tell. My sister jokes though. She's like, all the guys you're not interested in, you're just totally yourself, and you're just all good, and they like you, and then you like a guy and you just can't, you're just like, so you can't come down. So she would actually attest to it being that I can't quite be myself.
Right. You're not relaxed enough. You're a little too uptight or whatever. Okay.
Anyways, but I just think that's funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd say there's a little bit of, there's maybe a little play in there, but I honestly, deep down, I think it is the gut. I don't sense the long-term falling together. And I really don't like the idea of someone putting a ton of time into me if I'm not certain.
Right. Okay. So it's a little bit of that certainty. And tell me, Candace, like, what has it been like to be single? Because you're, you don't need to tell me your exact age, but I know you're a little bit older than me, and I'm almost 40. So I'm just thinking, like, you're not old by any stretch of the imagination, but you're older maybe than the average person would be that would get married.
Yeah.
So what is it like to be single?
Sure.
And I want all my listeners, I just want you to know that I did ask Candace about this a little bit before, because you're probably thinking, man, you're asking all these tough questions. But I did kind of at least give her a little heads up that I might want her to talk about singleness a little bit. So why don't you tell us about being single? What's that like? What are some of the stigmas? Just that kind of stuff.
Sure. I love it. I have really come to love it. It's a wonderful journey. Definitely. I mean, obviously, I am surrounded by stellar people. I am so, so blessed. I have people, I'm friends with the family. I'm not just friends with the girl. You know what I mean? So I feel like and my friends are so kind, and my family, they don't make me feel like a third wheel. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
But I also feel like, I'm playing with the kids. I love everybody, in that group. And so I try my best also not to feel like I don't want to take away from their family time too, because I know they're sharing it with me. So I think I try to be a bit gracious with that, and I am willing to travel to see my friends. I mean, obviously I don't have children. So for me, that makes it, a little easier. So I do make the effort to get to my friends and try to keep those relationships good if they don't have that flexibility. Right.
Did you ever have
I would
people?
say,
Oh,
go
sorry.
ahead.
I was saying, did you ever have people kind of be like, Candace, like, when are you going to get married? Did you ever have that? Did you have anybody kind of pressure you or just kind of like, come on, or no?
I would definitely have people like, I know a guy,
Yeah.
right? I'm like, oh, I wish you could meet a guy. That's kind of like not as much now, because I do find, as you get older, maybe, there's not, like, honestly, I feel like I live in between towns where there's like no single guys, pretty much.
Okay. Yes.
So I do find that kind of funny. But I travel alone.
Yeah.
I love traveling. I love meeting people. I think being an extrovert obviously is beneficial, because I just have made some really cool friendships that I wouldn't have had the opportunity as easily, I think, to have made,
Mm-hmm.
if I had my family and we're all like, we probably would have said hello to some people and made some connections, but to the level I have,
Yeah.
that probably wouldn't have happened. So I also, go to dinner by myself because I want to. And I don't stop living because there isn't someone to create the memories with.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some people get caught up in that loneliness and look too much at it from a sad point. And I think it can be easy to do. And there has definitely been moments where I've shed some tears and, prayed like, God, send me a hug today. I just really need like some sense of a hug. And, I felt like that prayer would be answered in some way, shape, or form.
Mm.
Just remind me, that I'm not by myself in this journey. And my friends and family have done a good thing. I would say also not relying on just one friend all the time has been good. I have a lot of friends. So you're never exhausting someone who can't give that much, right? Because people do have families and they're busy and they're working. And so for myself, I kind of spread myself around.
Yeah.
So,
good.
I go to Edmonton and I'll visit one cousin. And the next time I go to Edmonton, I'll try to visit another cousin. And,
Yeah.
So that way it's like, I'm not exhausting, one human, I guess, too much and stressing those friendships.
It seems to me, Candace, that you seem to be thinking a lot about other people. Like that seems to be a lot of the theme that comes out. Like I would say you're probably kind of like that empath kind of personality. Like you're always looking out, like, how can I help? How can I serve? And I think that's really going with your music lessons as well, the music lessons that you teach, because I've gotten a lot of feedback. Heard a lot of people, oh, Candace teaches my kids piano. Oh, Candace is amazing. Like, she's so amazing. They're just like, oh, like just how amazing you are. And I think it's because and this is something I think we all have to learn, is how to put yourself in other people's shoes, right? Like you're talking about, spreading your friendships out because you don't want to have and you're talking about, didn't want to burden your family with your mental health issues. And like that is probably what draws people to you. But then I have another question, because you are that kind of a person who everybody likes and everybody kind of wants to be around. Do you find that sometimes you get depleted? Do you find that sometimes you're just like, I'm just giving and maybe you don't think about what you need enough? Or do you feel like maybe at this point in your life that you've been able to establish those good boundaries? Like, where are you at? Has that been an issue for you ever?
Oh, it was a huge, yeah.
Okay.
I actually was hitting wild burnout. Probably trying to think how long, 2 or 3 years ago.
Okay.
Definitely, I was working at the dental clinic. I was teaching music. Sometimes I'd work all day at the clinic. I would teach music in the evenings and then start a really early day at the dental clinic, or I'd work a really long music day trying to fit as many people in as possible. And then Sundays I was in charge of, the songs at our own church. And because I was working so much, it wasn't easy for me to try to find someone else. So it's just easier for me to just take it on. So I felt like, I was pretty much working 6 days a week, pretty like long hours. And it was showing up in terms of, there was a lot of stress. Even when I was with my friends, I realized, I was just so stressed about my life and like how much I was giving out. And And even like, I love doing music at church, but I was getting to the point, and I didn't even realize I'd been doing it for a really long time. The years just kind of went by, and then all of a sudden I was just like, I was thinking in my head, maybe I'd been doing it for 3 years, but I think it was like 7 that I'd been doing that. And all of a sudden I was like I just dreaded having to do it. Like it was just this thing that was torturing me every week. And I hated, and I felt so guilty that I felt that way. But I also had no time for music personally anymore. I never touched the piano, never sang for anything that was just personal and just fed my own heart. And I actually went to a conference with a group called Resurgence, and just had some people. I actually went to this, this is cool. They would have people teach on things that they felt like they had learned. So they set up these little conferences that were just on the fly, little sessions. And so this guy did this thing on like burnout. And I just thought, and I was like, I gotta go. And so I went, and like, he just started talking, and I was like crying instantaneously. So I'm like, oh crap.
Busted.
I'm like, I've totally been overdoing this. And so I finally got the courage to step back, and I still help, but I don't help on the level that I was. And I've tried to be more realistic. I also realized I need to work in, like, my health was suffering as well, not really getting good fitness in. So that changed. I really had to be willing to uproot my calendar and say no. Like, I know that I want to be a healthy human. I want to be fit and able to hike into my senior years. And what am I doing to make sure these things are possible?
How hard was it for you to say no? Like, when you started saying no and backing off of stuff, was that hard for you? Did it feel really uncomfortable?
It was a little bit, but it was just so much relief in terms of, like, I just couldn't keep doing that long term and not have it negatively impacting me. And I knew it was. So, even I was just like, no, I don't want to become to a place where I hate music.
Yeah.
Like, I love music. So for me to get to the point where I'm starting to hate it, like, something's wrong, like, it's not working.
So it was so necessary for you that it was like any discomfort of having to say no and backing off was like, no, like, I'm at the end here. Like, I'm hitting a wall. Yeah. This is necessary.
Yeah. And I mean, definitely the bawling in the conference thing definitely was like, okay, like, because it was hard. I kind of had felt that way, but I felt super guilty.
Yeah.
And I didn't want other people to be burdened because I was saying no. Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, but I can't. It's no longer a healthy space for me. And just that dread every week I didn't want it.
Yeah. No more. You're done with it. Yeah.
And I do think that whole idea of, like, I think we have to be willing to change our calendars sometimes. I think that can be really scary for some people, but it has been worth everything I've changed. Like, it's so much better.
Good. Well, I want to kind of just ask you kind of 2 more questions before we kind of wrap this up. The first question is, I want to hear from you, like, what would you tell? So for those of us who have people with mental health, okay, they've got mental health issues. We know, friends, family, maybe they have bipolar, they have something like that. What would you say to them? Like, if you could kind of give, and I'm totally putting Candace on the spot right now, but what would be some tips that you could give to them on how to deal with someone that has mental health? How do you talk to them? Like, maybe people have talked to you in a certain way that you're just like, oh, like, that's just, don't say that to people, whatever you do. Or, like, what tips can you give to those of us who are working or, dealing with people that have mental health? What can we say to them? How can we make them feel good, make their life happier? What would you say about that?
Oh man, that is a hard question.
It's a big question.
Like, whoa,
yeah,
whew, I might start sweating.
Or even just one thing, like when you were going through maybe the hardest time, Like what would have been helpful for you? Or even now, like if someone would just say, Candace, I mean, you talked about how, God doesn't see you as, oh, Candace is the one with bipolar. She's my bipolar girl. It's like he sees you as Candace, right? He sees you as his child. So that's definitely one thing. Is there something else you would say about that? Or would you just say that's just the most important thing? Okay.
Definitely. Like this is a piece of the story. It's not, some of the things that people said to me was like, this was a 2-week period of your life, or this was a section, this is a section of your life, but it is not your whole story. And I really, really would say, to people, remember that this is a portion. Someone is struggling in this moment, but it is not who they are for the rest of their life. Mm-hmm. Like you said, people meet me now. I mean, people meet me all the time. They would never, ever know.
Right.
And it is not who I am. It does not define all of me. Mm-hmm. It is a piece of my story. Mm-hmm. And I have not let it become, the it and the all about my life. I don't want it to take over my life. Mm-hmm. And so just kind of remembering that, as well as, remember to, like, how are ways that you can be kind to that person and remind that person maybe of their value in a healthy way, obviously. Like, sometimes I needed a kick in the pants to be like, 'cause like I didn't work for a while, and then I was like super, super afraid of getting out there and getting a job again and just getting on my feet. Like I just had, like, believe me, there was seasons and things to overcome and do and get brave again. And I think that's part of it. Remember, like, you'll get your courage back. Mm-hmm. You're going to get your bravery back. And those were actually some of the most beautiful parts of my story, is remembering God, like even just speaking to my heart, like, it's time for you to be brave again. It's time for you to have courage again. It's time for you to spread your wings. It's time for you, and so you're in this journey, and let God, like I wrote a poem actually, and it talked about like God restoring these beautiful pieces of myself and like giving them in these very special ways back to me after I felt very broken. And so remember, you could be part of that person's journey of putting them back together and like making them whole again. And reminding them that, God isn't finished with you yet. And also in struggle, remember this, you are being given an opportunity to learn what it means to be an overcomer. It's hard. I'm not going to say it's easy sometimes, but you learn that you actually can be an overcomer, and you learn tools about how to come to the other side of difficulty. And that's a treasure you pass on. It's a treasure you have, something in your tool belt. So the next time life gets hard, you're like, okay, I've done hard before. It's going to be okay. I know it's a season, but we're going to get to the other side. I know this to be true. Wow. So there's some really special things.
Now you got me all choked up here, Candace. That's beautiful what you said, though. Wow. Yeah, that's really great. I had another question. It doesn't seem very important anymore, but I'll ask it anyways. So one more question I have for you is, so you talked about mental health, how we can help people, especially by saying, look, this is not who you are. This doesn't define you. This is a part of your story. You struggle with mental health at times. So with singleness, kind of the same thing. What would you say to those of us who have single friends? What would be something maybe that we should say to them? How can we help them? And maybe some things that we just really shouldn't say. Like maybe one of the things would be, well, I know a guy, right?
I always thought that was fun.
Okay. Okay, so then you can say that. Maybe to some people.
I mean, some people might be offended by that, but I was always like, oh, you guys.
You guys, yeah.
I think it's hilarious. I would say to the single people, like, make your life beautiful. How do you want to be remembered? I think the goals and the things were very simple for me in terms of like, my desire is how can I, in the people I cross, whether at the dental clinic, whether teaching music, how can I make their day better? I can smile at them. I can take an interest in them, and in these little ways, because I want to contribute positively into the world around me. So what is my focus? If it's woe is me, I can't invest positively. And I mean, we all have those days sometimes. They're allowed. You know, we can have our days, but I don't want to live there, right? So in terms of that, and then in terms of things not to say, let's see. Well, this is funny. If you're a waitress, I was telling Carla this story. I went out for dinner, got brave, decided to go for dinner on my own for the first time. I wanted steak, and I was like, I don't know anyone in Edmonton right now, and I want to have steaks. I'm like, forget it. I'm going for steak. And this waitress like, wow, you are so brave. You're like, okay, I was actually feeling really good about this, and now I feel a little weird. But then we chatted, whatever, got over it. But it was funny.
Right.
And and I think realizing like they, encourage the quality of life. What are their dreams? Take an interest in their dreams, because if I'm pursuing the dreams and the things I'm made to pursue, if there's someone meant for me, I'm pretty sure I'm going to cross their path. So I would say, like, take the time to, like, what do you want to do? Like, what matters to you? Who do you want to be? How do you want to be remembered? Like,
Yeah, I love everything that you're saying, Candace. And that's really why I wanted you on here, because the whole point of this podcast is to take like kind of these everyday people, these normal people, like you're not some celebrity out there.
No.
I think you're a celebrity in your own way, but you're not a celebrity out there. You're not some kind of politician. You don't get all this limelight, but you are making a positive impact everywhere you go. Right? Like the feedback that I'm hearing from other people, and even just like watching you on Facebook, right? Like doing your songs, telling your truth, speaking up about the things that you believe in, and just sharing your life with others. I just feel like you're this little light, that's just going around shining on everybody else. And all the pieces of your story, your mental health, your singleness, some other tough things that you've been through, those have all been a part of making you who you are, and allowing you to make such an incredible impact on all those piano students, all your, nieces and nephews and cousins, and like all your family. They just adore you, Candace, right? Like people just adore you. And it's not because you're pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps. It's because you're relying on God, and you're choosing to be positive, and you're choosing to continue to build into other people's lives. You're not just holed up thinking about woe is me, right? And you really have that outward perspective. And that just inspires me so much. So thank you for being that.
I love what you're doing, because I'm also hearing a lot of the same feedback. You're killing it. You're helping so many people, feel better about who they are and feel like they can accomplish things that maybe felt scary. And I think that's huge for us.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I feel like we're like vibing, like we get each other, we understand it. Yeah. And I mean,
totally.
The impact that you're having in the music world, and then like is similar to kind of the stuff that I'm trying to do more in the fitness world.
Yeah.
But I just love seeing it. It's just so beautiful. So I'm going to end there, Candace, but I just want to thank you again so much for sharing your story. I know it was hard. You had me choked up, you were choked up, and probably other people listening to this are going to get choked up. And that's okay, because, you have to go through that hard stuff in order to come out on the other side and see the beauty and see like how you can be brave when it's called for. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So
thank you for having me.
Yes, you're so welcome. Thank you, Candace. This episode is brought to you by my company, Power Fitness Online. We are a tight-knit fitness community, and we guide you every step of the way to get fit and stay fit through our live workouts, nutrition coaching, and incredible support team. Go to powerfitnessedson.com to learn more. Thank you for tuning into the podcast today. If you enjoyed it, please leave a positive review on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Music, or wherever you're listening. And if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, I would love to see your comments. I would love to know what you think about this episode and interact with you. I love hearing from you. Once again, I'm Carla Rand, and this is The Carla Rand Show, and I can't wait to see you next week for our next episode.